really nice. I love walking, so it was like it's like an hour and a half walk. I'm like, feels good. It feels good. And then an hour and a half back.
Oh. Oh, wow.
It felt like what I needed today.
Hi, folks online. Hold on, I'm trying to. It's a day for stuff today. Where do you live? What?
I live in Belmont Shore, like right over by 2nd Street.
Yeah. I will take you afterwards.
Hmm?
I'm not doing anything afterwards. I'll take you in my car.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm not. Ricar's here. I am totally fine with that.
Are you leaving anyways?
Hi. Nope. But I'm not doing anything.
Oh.
So yeah.
So
I'm
nice
sorry,
of
people.
you.
It's my eternal messing with the tech stuff is still going on.
Yeah, it's
Messing with the tech is the. If the tech worked perfectly, y'all wouldn't be as entertained.
right. It's so fun.
I am going to get another thing, another camera thing, because my phone has stopped being at all helpful. Hi, Teresa. Okay, so last week we were talking about hyssop. And so this week we're going to look at formulation with hyssop, just like we did with lemon balm. This is a really great, thank you, Ren, I know. You know, think back, I didn't always smile through the techie stuff. I've grimaced often enough, but you know, at this point, it's like, this is just my life with the techie stuff. So we did this with the lemon balm. I think it's really helpful to, once you know a plant, once you learn about a plant, to start thinking about it in terms of pairs, how combining it with another plant modifies the effects of it. We can modify it, we discussed this the last time, we can modify it by changing the energetics, right? A plant has specific energetics, we're always talking about those, and sometimes those energetics are off kilter for the body that we want to be providing this herb for. So we can just combine it with something to offset that. We can also combine to direct the actions. If we have a plant that can go either to primarily to respiratory system, as with hyssop. You know, hyssop has a really strong respiratory component, but it also has a very strong digestive component. So we can sort of, in our formulation, direct the qualities of the plant to that primary system where we want that action to take place. And we'll look at that in our formulation, you know, the second step of our formulation. Not that it stops, of course, working on the other system, right? It's always going to work on all the systems because this is one body that's in. But in that formulation, if we combine hyssop with mullein, then the effects are going to be seen much more clearly in the respiratory tract, whereas if we combine hyssop with licorice root, we're going to see it much more in the gut, right, or with them, right? So yeah, we start with our pairing, combining them in pairs, seeing how that modifies, and then we can just start throwing them all together, and that is the beauty of formulation. So we're going to start with the pairs, and I have some of our hyssop tea going, so we'll have something to sip on, and then after we go through these, we will, you can have an opportunity to formulate with the blends that we have here. And y'all at home kind of think about the variations that you have on these herbs and formulate accordingly. Because every herb, we want to remember, we're talking about one plant primarily today, hyssop, but I keep on forgetting that y'all are up here and not down there. And here, of course. What was I saying? I don't know, it was very important. I don't know. So yeah, I've got some tea going, And oh, yes, I do remember. Because while we're talking about hyssop, we're talking about the actions and the therapeutic value. Number one, hyssop is a Lamiaceae family, right? So it can be used interchangeably with many other ones, and there's always going to be substitutes for plants. There's always going to be a plant to use if you don't have the one that we're talking about. There's no plant that exists that there isn't some type of a substitute for it, because plant chemistry is very, very, very redundant, right? Why make different compounds for all of the different plants when you've already made a really serviceable compound that can be used over a wide range of plants? That's why we were talking about terpene chemistry, a little while ago. That's why we see terpenes across such a wide range of compounds. Debbie says, hi, I'm planning on growing hyssop this year. Yeah, it's a great plant to grow. It really, really is wonderful. And it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Debbie, what part of the country do you live in? So we were just saying, I've got some tea going. We're just going to turn that off now. Turn that off and let it steep, and then we will pour that. Okay, so we will start the formulation, the duo. You live in Indiana, yeah. It'll love growing there, yes. And then once you grow it, it'll self-seed, it'll spread, and then you'll just have, you'll start with a couple of plants of hyssop, and pretty soon, as a spreading family plant, you'll have an abundance of it. It'll be so beautiful. And your pollinators will be so happy, your bees will be so happy, your birds will be so happy, your garden will be so happy. There's diversity. Yeah, it'll be wonderful. Okay, so hyssop is our base plant. So this is, again, Hyssopus officinalis in the Lamiaceae family. So let's look at how we can modify this plant in how we formulate. So hyssop plus mullein. We just talked about this, and we'll kind of go into that. So mullein is one of the plants that is used as a respiratory tonic, right? Mullein is one of our primary trophorestoratives for the lungs. So it feeds and nourishes and builds the lungs. And it has a really neutral, energetic pattern, slightly moistening, but it's not really goopy moistening like marshmallow, right? So it's moistening. It is antispasmodic, is its primary effect, in that it's just generally strengthening to the lung tissue. But antispasmodic and relaxant and strengthening. It works beautifully with hyssop, because hyssop has a little bit more of the aromatics, not too much, but a little bit more of those aromatics, and more of those phenolic compounds, those flavonoids that help with the tissue strength and stabilization. And mullein doesn't have that. And so consider that combination of mullein's ability to kind of relax and open up the lungs, and hyssop's ability to actually go in and create long-term structural repair and strength and stability. We always want to promote structural strength and stability. So that's a really nice combination, and it does offset a little bit the initial drying effect that hyssop can have. Although we remember that hyssop has a diaphoretic effect, right? So it will kind of move fluids to the surface, so it has a moistening effect on the lungs. It is nonetheless, to the whole body, it is more drying, right? Because that moisture comes from somewhere. So the mullein is also going to offset a little bit that drying quality. So that is one of our combinations. Now, if we want to go even more with that moistening, if we want to lean hard into that, we would go, of course, with what? Licorice. Well, licorice. Let's go with licorice.
Oh,
that wasn't where I was going to go, but I did bring licorice. I did bring it because it is a really, really good plant, because it is more moistening. So licorice is a great combination with hyssop in looking at hyssop's ability. So yes, bringing that moisture in there, but licorice isn't necessarily cooling like most of the other moistening herbs, right? If we look at marshmallow, if you look at mullein, generally the moistening herbs tend to be really cooling. But licorice is kind of neutral, even slightly warming in its energetic effects. Probably because it has a really high amount of saponins. Saponins are those soap-like compounds. We've seen them in class when we make a decoction and I shake it up in a jar and you can see that foam coming up because it's a soap-like substance, right? Licorice is very, very rich in saponins. And you remember that saponins are, again, like soaps, saponins break things down. And so they're really good for kind of stuck, stagnant fluids and fluids in the body. So saponin-rich plants generally tend to cleanse tissues. And so think of licorice combined with hyssop when you have a lot of that really stagnant mucus, right? That kind of tenacious, sticky, tenacious, thick and sticky. There we go. Happy Monday, Sandra, yay. So yeah, when you have that, and then also we can expand that. Hyssop is really good at moving fluids throughout the body, right? And so licorice is a really strong anti-inflammatory. Licorice is one of our strongest anti-inflammatories that isn't really heating like the turmeric and ginger type. And so if you're looking for something that is a systemic anti-inflammatory, hyssop and licorice is a really nice base of an anti-inflammatory blend as well. That would be very, very neutral tasting, but really lovely with that. Now, of course, licorice is a concern for some people when, with what? What is the health concern associated with licorice? There's one thing that generally is the question that people ask, the issue that people have with licorice. So remember what that is? It is that licorice can have a tendency to, there you go, Sandra, speedy, you are a speedy typer. Hypertension, absolutely, hypertension. So hypertension secondary to licorice root ingestion. Licorice causes a change in pituitary function that changes production of a hormone called aldosterone, and that affects the way that the kidneys filter fluids in the body. It stops them from filtering fluids in the body, and so it has a resultant increase in body fluid volume, and that causes an increase in blood pressure. So hypertension, secondary licorice root, you stop drinking it, it goes away. So it isn't, it doesn't persist. Some people find some heart rate, heartbeat irregularities associated with it as well. Generally, that is not a concern for formulas with a small amount of licorice root in them, as we would be making here. The primary concern with licorice is really when it's ingested as a fluid extract, the way that it's found in a lot of the natural black licorice candies like Panda licorice. But nonetheless, if you have someone with high blood pressure, you'd want to be concerned with licorice root. The change is often felt immediately. It really is dose dependent and individual, right? So someone with with really high hypertension or kind of really kind of dysfunction in fluid regulation in the body already, right? Like the kidneys aren't working optimally, and then you're throwing licorice in there and dysregulating that pituitary function. That could be felt certainly more immediately than someone who had a little bit more space there, a little bit more grace. Yeah. All right, so licorice root for getting moisture, and licorice root does have an affinity for the gut, the gastrointestinal lining, and the hyssop as a really nice bitter for the digestion and a carminative. It is a really nice blend also for the digestive system. So that's a nice, that same combination could be used systemically as an anti-inflammatory, but also more locally for support of digestive function. Let's see. And then, if you didn't want to use the licorice, but you did like that idea of the licorice and fennel for digestion, you could instead of licorice, you could use fennel seed. So fennel seed is what's often used to flavor things that are licorice flavored. And not to say that the chemistry of fennel is the same as the chemistry of licorice root. They are very, very, very different. But fennel seed is an aromatic seed. It's really yummy. And those essential oils are a very strong antispasmodic. So they're antispasmodic to the gut, so really nice for cramping, spasticity, bloating, gas, farting, burping, all of that after eating food that we shouldn't. And then the hyssop as a bitter is going to generally improve digestive functioning. Let's see, fennel is also a really nice, mild mucolytic. Mucolytic, I think that's a newer vocab word. Mucolytic is a compound. So lytic, the suffix lytic is breaks down, right? From the root word lysis. To lyse a cell is to break a cell apart, to break something apart. So lysis is to break apart. Lytic breaks down the prefix, which is mucus. So mucolytic things break down mucus. So fennel is an aromatic mucolytic. Those essential oils in it are really nice at gently breaking up stagnant mucus. Again, a really nice affinity for hyssop. So there, again, we can use the same formula for the respiratory tract, for certain conditions, or for the digestion. And the fennel and hyssop is a really nice blend for kids. It's a very neutral taste. A lot of kids love the taste of fennel. And hyssop is mild enough. Yerba Santa. This is one of my favorites. This is one of our bioregional plants here in Southern California. Yerba Santa grows abundantly in our mountains, and Yerba Santa is a plant that has, again, an affinity for the respiratory tract. But there was a recent study that there's a unique compound in Yerba Santa that has been shown to possibly be of value in treatment of Alzheimer's. Not at all part of the traditional usage of Yerba Santa. And Yerba Santa has a long tradition of use, of course, by indigenous people in this region. But it was also a beloved plant by the physiomedicalist doctors who learned it from indigenous people and used a lot of Yerba Santa in the early years of Western herbalism, and then it kind of fell out of favor, and it's kind of it's seen a resurgence lately in the last couple of decades. Of course, always kept alive because we always have had indigenous people who've used it as medicine. And traditional herbalists have used it as medicine, but in dominant culture, things kind of come and go. And so Yerba Santa is seeing a resurgence of interest. It is a plant that is very, very good for stimulating secretion of fluids into the lungs, so helping with that sticky, thick, tenacious mucus. So there is a concern if you're using Yerba Santa along with hyssop, you could have excessive drying. So that could be really, really beneficial if you have a condition where you need excessive drying. If you need something that's really going to help to just clean up the goop in the lungs, that would be an excellent combination. If you already had a lot of inflammation and dryness in the lungs, that would feel really uncomfortable to have that combination, hence the importance of proper formulation. Yerba Santa, so fennel, sorry, not Yerba Santa, Yerba Santa, hyssop. A lot of people like to use hyssop because it has a history of use that stretches way back. It's an ancient plant, and it's a plant that was named in the Old Testament, in the Psalms. There's Psalms beautiful poetry that talks about the use of hyssop as a plant that was used ritually in cleansing. So a lot of people really love that. People who love to use biblical herbs and historical herbs really like to use that. It is important to note that the hyssop of the Bible was likely more similar to an oregano than the hyssop that we see now. Much more spicy, much more warming, much more aromatic. So if you want to use the hyssop of the Bible, you'd actually be better off using oregano leaf if you wanted to get that same effect. So hyssop and oregano is a really nice combination. Anyway, if you wanted to increase that spiciness, that volatile, those volatile oils, because that is one place where hyssop is significantly less than oregano. And thyme, you could also use thyme in this place too, and marjoram, any of those. But hyssop and oregano, that's going to really help to boost the antimicrobial qualities and the aromatic qualities of the plant. That's going to make it much nicer for all of the kind of the upper sinus congestion through the lungs, and also, of course, because you have all those aromatics, those also work as carminatives in the gastrointestinal tract for relieving gas and bloating there. So again, you have a compound that would be equally good for the lungs and for the gut, but again, very warming and stimulating there with the oregano leaf. Also a traditional formula using kind of the ancient plants. I really love the combination of hyssop and olive leaf. Olive leaf, these are both plants of the Mediterranean, right? This is where both of these plants originated from. And olive leaf is one of the plants that we can use for immune support, specifically for certain virus families. Olive leaf is an immune support plant. So combining olive leaf with hyssop, remember we were talking last week about the effects that hyssop has on regulation of Th1, Th2 balance, so helping to kind of normalize immune responses in allergic and adaptive immune function. And so the combination of hyssop and olive leaf would be a really nice general immune support blend there, relatively neutral in its effects. And then a final combination, hyssop and marshmallow. Here, really, we're just using the marshmallow as a modifier of energetics. Marshmallow as a moistening plant. However, I really love using here marshmallow leaf instead of the root. People go automatically to the root, and the root is really nice, but the root takes a little bit more time to extract. It really, because of the types of polysaccharides that are in there, it benefits from sometimes it benefits from an initial hot extraction and then a cooling to a cold extraction to kind of break down the cell structures and then extract those cold soluble compounds, where the leaf has a lot of those same compounds, but they're not held in the cellulose of the root, and so it doesn't need quite as much tweaking as the root does to extract the mucilage. It's easier, and then you also have, because you have the leaf, you also have flavonoids, and you all know how I love my flavonoids, so why not have flavonoids and mucilage, unless you really need just a pure slime. But if you've not used marshmallow leaf, you should try marshmallow leaf, because you'll be pretty amazed at how slimy it gets. If you want to see how slimy marshmallow leaf gets, it's been raining around here, you can go out and find some mallow, some of the cheeseweed growing out there, and just nibble on one of the leaves and your mouth will fill. Beautiful, beautiful slime. So marshmallow leaf and hyssop, offsetting that drying quality of the hyssop, we would throw in some of that marshmallow leaf to just help when there is a lot of dryness there, and yeah, just help to regulate that. So these are just a kind of a cross section of plants that can be combined with hyssop, and then we can see that by combining beyond these pairings, we can start to really formulate pretty widely with this Materia Medica. So just with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plants, we can make a pretty wide range of formulas for musculoskeletal support, right, in regulation of inflammation, for digestive support, for circulatory support, for immune system support, for respiratory support, for digestive support. We could also make some pretty decent things for skin support and yeah, we have all of the systems. So I'm going to have you folks think about a formula that you'd like to make with this as a tea blend. I do have some of the Hyssop tea there if you'd like to pour yourself some tea and remember what Hyssop tastes like. It's been a whole week, so you might have forgotten. It's a nice neutral taste. Yeah, and then we can we'll formulate with those. Do you have any questions, folks, about Hyssop? Folks online, or here, or on formulation. This formulation, this is going to be one of those soup kind of formulations. I did not get a cup.
Lots of big ones.
I'll add a big one.
It's minty.
Because it's...
It is like an interesting, I didn't expect it to taste like it tastes. It's nice.
It is a
I don't think I remember having
nice.
this before.
Yeah,
It's the mint family.
It's a mint one. Yeah,
It
let me
tastes
see
a
it.
little minty.
Yeah. It's not one of the strongly minty plants, but it's so lovely.
Yeah.
It's just really
That's
gentle.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really one of my favorites. And if you look at the batch, I was gloating about this last week. It's just gorgeous. This batch of Hyssop. One of the things about the Lamiaceae family is that the essential oil content peaks when the plants are in bloom. And so you can just see that it's filled with these little purple flowers.
Where'd you get it?
Just
Ooh,
lovely.
it smells
It's
nice.
Oshala. It's Oshala farm. You can almost always just look at something and go, oh yeah, that's Oshala. The whole leaf, vibrant colors. There's no plants like Oshala. Except for no plants like getting plants direct from a farm. All right, so we're going to formulate. That was a faster class than we often have. We're going to formulate with Hyssop here. Make blends. You at home make a blend with whatever you have that has a similar kind of quality to it, right? Again, it is in the mint family. You can substitute whatever your local mints are and play around with formulation. It is a wet, rainy day here today, so it's a perfect day to be sitting inside here all comfy, cozy, drinking tea together. So I hope you are comfy, cozy where you are, and we will see you next week with a new plant. Oh, and again, I was looking down at the screen. Getting a new.
I thought you were getting a new.
I know. I keep on saying I'm gonna get a new one. I'm gonna get a new one. Any moment now, I'm gonna get a new one. Bye bye, folks.